Hey gang, it is Monday, March 15th, 2017, and this will be part 4 in the Brooklyn Pony 1966 convertible rebuild. And if you followed along in the other videos, I know the first video I did an overview of the car. The second and third videos were a disassembly of the rear of the car and saving sheet metal for those areas, of which there's some right there, and then the rear seat riser. So along with that, I've been progressing forward to where I'm going to remove the A-pillars and the windshield frame as an assembly, and obviously I'll have to do some removal of various pieces and parts that'll be in the way. To start with, I'm going to pull the windshield out. It's cracked anyway, not usable. There's a big crack right there, and there's a chip down here which is secondary, but so I'll have to pull the windshield out. To do that, I'll have to take this trim off, which unfortunately the trim is pretty beat up. There's some dents along this bottom down here, and then this piece I think is the best out of all of them. The upper part has various dents in it, same way on both sides, and these dents are actually from the convertible top. It has those little pins, and it's kind of strange to me. Usually there's, in other cars I've done or worked on, there's usually a guide hole for those pins to go in. So I don't know if there's something missing here or if it didn't have them. It's kind of odd. I know that the top does have that guide pin. Yeah, right there on both sides. Well, it has it on the passenger side, and it's missing from the driver's side. So it's kind of odd. But anyway, I'll have to remove all this trim in order to do that. There's some interior trim which is already rusted up and bent, so there's some screws holding this on. Have to get that out of the way, and then find the hardware. There's some holes up here, and remove these upper pieces, which you can see that overlap driver's side onto passenger side. Get those off, get this trim off, and get this lower trim off where it meets the cowl, and then the windshield can come out. So along with that, I'm going to try to save the upper cowl. I don't know if I'm going to use it or not, but I think it's worth saving. The car itself, the cowl itself, is pretty solid. There's only one bad spot which could be repaired, and that's over here on this side. Pretty minor. But if you look inside, you can see daylight, which means that the inner cowl is no good. But still, I'm going to try to save that upper cowl. Now, in order to get the A-pillars off, there'll be a series of spot welds along here. There's it's either probably a braze right there that has to come loose. I'll separate the cowl, and I'm going to try to keep the dash attached to the A-pillar assembly in the windshield frame. So various pieces have to come apart, and I know the firewall is no good, so I have no problem cutting it. I do have to unbolt the steering column from the dash so that it can stay with the car. But I'm going to try to go along and get this apart. Oh, I'm going to salvage these pieces. They do make these. They're not that expensive. But what I've found with other cars that I've done is the copies or aftermarket are not as good. They don't fit as good. It's almost like they made their design to overlap this piece rather than be the same dimensions. So it's kind of big. So it's easy to save these, just a few spot welds. Take that off and save it. Yeah, so that's the goal today. And let me get the camera set up and I'll start digging in. just to show you the little nuts that hold these. If you can see up in there or not. Kind of hard to see, but those are a 3/8. So I'll take those loose, and that'll let me remove the top pieces of trim. I believe there's also a screw on the end of this where you can see this trim molding goes up. There's a screw, sorry, there's a screw right here, and that overlay, I can now see that this goes behind that, and it looks like there may be even a screw in there. So I need to remove this first and then get access to that screw. Obviously, you want to save that piece. Take that out. And there's the top trim. And of course, this is stainless, so at least I think it's stainless. It appears to be stainless. So that may be able to be saved. Now I'll take the other side off and then continue from there. Alright, so with the upper trim off and the piece that holds the seal removed, you'll see there are some screws here. And there, 2 screws. Sorry, I know the light's not helping. But those have to come out, and then there will be some clips underneath here that also have to come loose. So let me get these screws out of the way. And sometimes if these screws are a bit tough to get loose, you can take a screwdriver or a chisel and kind of tap on the edge, and that'll free up the rust, and they should come loose pretty easily. Like I said, these screws, they've got a nice edge on them sticking out that you can easily tap on. You don't want to hit it hard, just enough to break it loose. And then the next part of this is, these are clip removal tools. And I know they sell a kit like at Harbor Freight with a variety of different tools, but this is designed, if the clip is, say, as wide as my finger, it's designed to go behind it and to kind of squeeze it, and in effect it pushes the clip forward so that it can release the trim. Let's see if I can get this loose, but there should be three clips on here, and sometimes it's easy, sometimes it's hard, and we'll see what happens. But I'm trying to get in behind there and find that first clip and separate it. It's easier with the narrower trim. This wider trim makes it a lot more difficult to catch. A lot of debris down in there from years and years. I just heard it. I think I got the first one. Yep, there's 2. Well, the third one let loose. But the third one's even. There's 3 pieces. As you can see, they're kind of added in. I mean, this is stainless, and these pieces are kind of wedged in behind this little flange. Or this one's better. You can see there's a little tab on each end, and this is just kind of wedged in there. See that move? So there, looks like the third one is missing. So at some point, it got lost during the previous repaint or whatever. Let's see if I can show you that clip a little better. Camera focus, there it is. So there's the clip, and the idea is these little jaws, you try to catch the edge of it, and when you squeeze in with the original trim behind it, it'll force it out, away, and release it, because there's a little lip there that catches on the inside edge of that trim. And so anyway, that's how that works. So I'm going to get the rest of this trim out of the way, but first I've got to remove the windshield wipers. Let me get that how I do it. Now granted, this car is, you know, it's not in the best of shape, but you still don't want to put dents around in the panel you're trying to save. And there's a variety of ways you can do this. Sometimes you can take a rag and put underneath the wiper. Sometimes you can get them with your hand. You know, you can break them loose and just kind of pull on them. But a lot of times they don't do that. What I like to do is just get a screwdriver underneath and use that as my plate, let's say, and then take another screwdriver and get behind it and pop it off. Now I'm not going to say they all will come off that easy or easily, but I've had pretty good luck. It depends on how they were treated before. Like, you can see there's paint residue on top of this. So that means they painted over this whole thing and didn't protect the little teeth. But luckily it came apart. So I'm going to get that bottom trim off, doing the same thing, taking that clip removal tool or spreader and, you know, squeezing the clips, getting that piece off, and then I'll go through, you know, removing the windshield out of this frame, which surprisingly enough, this rubber is very soft. And the only thing I see is where somebody had taken silicone and kind of wedged it up here at the top, trying to keep water out, I guess. But it may be savable. I know. Why save everything whenever you can buy new? Well, why buy new if you can reuse? Like I said, the glass is already broke, so it doesn't really matter much about it. There's the windshield. Yeah. Quite surprising how soft this rubber is. The frame all looks like it's in good shape. Alright, I've cleaned up the cowl area a little bit, the base of the windshield, and there you can see what the original color was. Not a bad looking color. So now at this point I'm going to continue to try to get this upper cowl loose. I'm going to start by separating both of these connector pieces and then work on separating the welds around the perimeter. And I'll take a sanding disc, and you can see the welds, but I'll still go over this with a sanding disc to bare the metal because I want to see the dimples. And there will be welds here that welded to the dash, and there will be welds here which basically weld it to the lower cowl panel. So let me get set up for that and I'll get started. size bit in my cordless drill. I can drill all the way through these holes here at the apron if I choose to. I don't think I'm reusing this apron, so if that's the case, I can just drill right through them and not worry about it. But if I'm saving a panel, I want to just remove the top part of the weld and then separate it. That way I don't have two holes to fill. Show you. There you can see the separation already. The focus there goes. Now I'm going back to my homemade cutter tool. It's not pretty, but it does the job. There's a better one out there that I mentioned before. They sell them from Auto Body Tool Mart. I'll try to remember to look up the part. I need to get off my tail and order one of those. I knew that was broken already, but I still wanted to get that piece off. I'm going to have to get a smaller piece of chisel and try to get that loose. So, well, I don't know where I put my chisel, so I'm going to use a screwdriver just to break these final little ones loose. Yeah, not bad. Feel a little bit of rust on it here in the corner, a little bit on this edge. We'll see. I may use it, I may not, but I like to save these just in case. So I'll do the same thing on the other side, and I'm going to work on this cowl a little bit. So maybe now you can see a little bit more of where I ground the spot welds open. So I'll do the same thing with my cordless drill. Just want to point this out, there's some braze in this corner. But there you can see the drill, how it worked, and some separation already right there. But that's some braze that'll have to be separated so that the panel can, so it can come up. So I have to cut that loose. Okay, so I ground that down some more, got most of the braze loose, and I've also drilled another spot weld I didn't see, and I've got another chisel that I've narrowed up, so I'll use that to separate. Alright, I think you get the idea. So I'm just going to keep on moving and work on getting the rest of the cowl loose. Well, I've discovered there's some more damage or rusted out areas on the cowl. So I'm not going to save it at all. I found this over here, and of course when you add these up in these different areas, you know, it's just going to be too much of an effort to try to save it. There's a bad spot up here. and it's just not worth it. So I'm changing direction. I was showing you how I drill these holes out, you know, go halfway through and not not bust through if possible. And what I've decided is, since I know the lower cowl is no good anyway, I don't care about the condition of the upper cowl, so it's just going to come out. And as you can see over there, I've already was a little more aggressive in separating the welds, and that's what I'm doing here. I am taking my grinding disc, as I've shown in other videos, and I'm grinding through the top of the weld and making it weak instead of using the drill, and then chiseling it off. So I'll just show you some more of those, so you get an idea what I'm talking about. Now if I need to, what I can do is get behind the seam or get between the two panels and take my cutoff wheel and weaken the rest of the weld. Alright, so at this point, all of the welds are broken loose from the cowl to the dash panel. I am not going to worry about the holes going down because that is attached to the lower cowl, and it's going to come out with the upper, so it doesn't matter. The only thing I'm going to do is separate the weld here, and there will be a few welds along this edge that I will also break loose. And then from there, I'll have to worry about, separating from this panel, or how I'm going to get the A-pillar loose from the rest of this. But for now, I'm focusing on getting this upper cowl out of the way. I did separate the welds here where the dash meets the upper cowl. I'm not going to worry about the secondary welds to the lower cowl. I'm not going to worry about the perimeter of any of this because it's all no good anyway. And so I'm going to use a plasma cutter and make short work of this, I hope. So I'm still thinking there's maybe a problem with the microphone on my camera. So if you hear some static, I'm sorry. I have to figure something out. I may have to get another camera. But I'm just going to keep going with what I have here, and see if I can't make some progress. Yep. And this side's worse over here. Lots of big holes. That's what happens. This stuff never got treated when it was new. And as debris accumulates and, moisture gets in there, there's really no other result but rust. That's why they sell these pieces and parts. So I'll get this cleaned out and then work on some more separation. Well, that was fun. Obviously, you will have some flammable material behind the firewall, but you know, not a lot that can burn on this car. So I just pulled it out and made sure it was out. This chunk of metal over here is bolted to the wiper motor, so I'll have to unbolt that, and then also unbolt the assembly for the wiper arms, or the posts, I should say. And from there, I'll work on getting, cutting loose out here. I've already drilled most of the spot welds out here on the perimeter. I'll have to make sure there's nothing else that is going to hold it. I'm sure there's a bit of braze right there. You can see it's kind of, I don't know, round. And then there's a chunk here. You see the color change. So I'll get everything else cut loose, and hopefully I'll be able to get this A-pillar out. Alright, with that upper assembly out of the way, I should say the upper and lower cowl out of the way, now I have access to everything on the back side of the dash, which will make it a little easier. I will have to disconnect anything associated with the heater controls, so that when these come apart, obviously the dash will go away and this stuff can stay here. I also need to remove the bolts over here that hold the steering column to the bottom of the dash and separate any wiring. Not going to use it anyway, but still get to separate the wiring. And then there's this brace mounts to the assembly for the brake pedal, so that'll have to be disconnected probably over here at the back side or behind the glove box. Anybody missing a can opener? That's been in there a while. And maybe a bracelet. Hard to say how long that's been in there, but you never know what you're going to find. That's where I'm at. So I'm going to continue to separate things and get closer to removing, again, the A-pillar and the windshield frame. So I think I have everything separated. Got that brace loose. I got the wiring all separated. Disconnected the heater controls, pulled them out. All this wiring is out of the way. I did get the steering column unbolted, at least from the dash. Also unbolted the parking brake rod. There's two nuts out here. They're 1/2 inch. So I took those off. And then when I separated the bolts for the steering column, I still had to consider whether everything would come apart or if there'd be some, something fighting me. So I decided to take the brake pedal assembly loose, and that was pretty easy. So I can actually pull that out now. It did have 4 bolts going through. There's 2 short bolts and 2 longer bolts. The 2 short bolts go through the top and actually hold the bracket to the firewall, and the longer bolts went through the master cylinder and went to the lower bolts on the bracket. Now you see these 2 open holes right here, 2 small holes. I believe at assembly, whenever they build these on the line, at the factory, they use these little bolts that just, are sheet metal bolts that go straight into the firewall. And what that did is it held everything in place until they came back in with the master cylinder. So that's where those go. So everything else is loose at this point, and basically I'm just going to start cutting, separating everything. I may even just cut into the rocker panel itself. I haven't decided completely yet. Maybe easier to do that. I don't know. I've got some of the holes or welds drilled out. There's not a lot of evidence. I'll hit this with a sander and expose what I can. I think there's one right there. Sorry, I think there's one right there. But along with that, I still have to separate this braze here and back here on both sides. So let me get started on that. success. Well, I'm going to say that that was a success. It's what I wanted to get done for the last segment of this particular video, and now you can see some of the construction. And really what I was dealing with was it was hanging on the middle plate here. Had to just make some openings and separate it, but yeah, it looks a little weird not having anything left to it, but I'm pretty happy with it. And of course now I'll do some removal of the rest of the rocker panel from the base, and of course blast it, clean it all up, and do any repair work that may need to be done. But I'm pretty happy with that. So now I can move on to getting the rest of this assembly out of here, and then I think I'm going to do a video on this kit that I bought. This is a basically a dolly kit from Summit, and I'm going to assemble that, and that'll be my base for what I'm going to set the Dynacorn pan on and start going from there. So that's it for now, and stay tuned, more to come. Thanks for watching.